The 1990s in Japan was the undisputed golden age of the multimedia franchise. A time when success wasn't just measured in TV ratings or manga sales, but how seamlessly a brand could infect every aspect of your life. It was an era that saw the rise of giants such as Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon, all of which have had a lasting cultural impact to this very day. Now, if you've been following my channel, you're well aware of my particular infatuation with a certain pretty soldier in a Sailor Fuku. We're diving into the magical world of Sailormoon, which began its life as a multimedia franchise, having originally been pitched as a manga, with an anime adaptation in the works before the first chapter is ever even published. The success of which gave rise to countless tie-in products, such as the Bandai-mandated nail polish. Of course, you can't have a true multimedia project, especially in the 90s, without some video games. Most of which were pretty decent titles. However, in the world of licensing incredibly successful IPs, sometimes some oddities slip through the cracks. So let's boot up a few of these forgotten files and see just what we have in store for ourselves. What in the fresh hell is this? This, my friends, is 1997's The 3D Adventures of Sailormoon. Although calling it all those words in a single sentence is a lie by structure. While there are some 3D elements, the adventuring aspect is non-existent. Although Sailormoon certainly does make an appearance. Upon booting up the game is already trying to talk us out of our decision by asking if we want to play the Sailormoon game. Clicking yes will ruin the next 30 minutes of your life. Clicking no will end your life, so seeing no other options, we click yes and continue on with our 3D adventure. Upon getting into the game, we're forced to bear witness to a bastardization of Moonlight Densetsu, accompanied by a poorly choreographed dance routine. Can I even play this without getting a copyright claim? Why is Tuxedo Mask watching them perform from the bushes? Well, upon getting that out of the way, we're introduced to what can loosely be described as the plot of this minigame collection. So, Queen Beryl has somehow gotten a hold of the transformational items of the Sailor Scouts. Their terminology, not mine. Thankfully, you can watch a poorly narrated title crawl that goes into the vast plot in more detail. It's already hard enough to hear the voices, but they added some sort of sound effects so you can't tell that the voice actors are locked up in Andy Hayward's basement. Just give it a listen.
In a not too far away dimension, evil Queen Beryl lavishes over her newly stolen possessions. For now, she has the transformational pens and the moon wand belonging to Sailormoon and her squad of teenage fighters, known as the Sailor Scouts. The once protectors of the universe are now unable to transform into their superhero counterparts and ward off the evil powers of the Negaverse. What is the world to do? Evil Queen Beryl has secretly hidden these moon transformational items in different dimensional rooms, and it is your duty as a Sailor Scout in training to help the Sailor Scouts throttle off the evil plans of Queen Beryl to drain the universe of its life forces.
Fight for all that is right and triumph over all evils, and that means you. Good luck!
So, as a Sailor Scout in training, our job is to bail out the more seasoned veteran team, which makes this game all the more depressing. As such, I'm going to dub ourselves as Sailor Heiress. a fitting name due to being a reference to the second largest known dwarf planet in the solar system, as well as the goddess of strife, which is the only way to describe this game. So now we delve deep into the core gameplay loop, which involves clicking one of the several buildings and subjecting ourselves to whatever sick games Queen Beryl has lined up for us. I then force the young, naive sailor heiress into the gaping maw of the puzzle room. A rather descriptive name, as it's puzzling who even designed such an abomination. Upon testing your wits to 3 puzzles, you are granted the transformation pen of Mercury, a reward that both physically and symbolically highlights your wisdom. Actually, I just think they got lucky with that one and just randomly assigned all the items to rooms. The next room is the Galactic Room Library, which gives you all the details about your favorite Sailor Scouts. Which begs the question if Beryl had access to this the entire time, or is this hell not of her own making? Here you can read some data files and learn all about your favorite characters. Oh wow! I didn't know Tuxedo Mask's favorite color is blue. The poorly compressed voices are trying to tell me more secrets, but I'm just here for Jupiter's pen. Next we have the Moon Fashion Salon, which sadly doesn't just have the characters gallivanting on a catwalk while some compressed ASMR talks about Tuxedo Mask.
This is Tuxedo Mask in his famous fighting tuxedo outfit. As you can see, black is his favorite color.
Wait, did they just contradict their own established lore? Oh, my immersion's completely ruined. In this area, you can play dress-up with poorly traced versions of all the characters. Now, I feel like I belong on some sort of watch list just describing this minigame, let alone playing it. But there's a pen hidden here too, so we gotta dress up Venus to get it. Just slap the goofiest outfit you can find on her and get the hell out of here before we unlock the mini-moon dress-up game, and Sailor Heiress and I really wind up on a government watch list. Next up is the aptly named Moon Castle TV show Palace, which plays nothing but early YouTube AMVs. Whoa, that was metal as hell. And we got Sailor Mars's pen. Neat. Thankfully, we only have one room left to go, the Crystal Fighting Arena, which is a goddamn gauntlet in of itself. On the surface, it seems to be a lighthearted Doom clone with a Sailormoon reskin, which it is. But if you're playing this game on anything that isn't native hardware, for instance, you're playing this on a modern PC emulating Windows 98, the game's brutal. Sailor Heiress just flies across the screen. And these little pumpkin goobers you fight have to be hit with such precision that it makes this minigame the most unplayable of the bunch. And that's saying something. If you do manage to hit one of the poor dolts, you're rewarded with 100,000 points, and you need 1 million to win, which shouldn't be that hard, just kill 10 of them and get it over with. Well, the game fails to mention that your points go down the longer it takes you to smash the pumpkins, so you have to kill them all within a very short time frame. I couldn't do it, so here's footage of someone who actually pulled that off. Yeah, that's right. For all your hard work, your reward is a fight with Queen Beryl, along with some other still images superimposed onto a 3D shape. Just blast those PNGs a few times and neat, you obtain the moonstick. I mean the crescent moon wand. Trademark. When all of that is wrapped up, you need to go back out to the plaza to finish the game once and for all. Finally, an award worth the effort.
Can now transform and fight off the evil forces of the Negaverse. Great job! Click on the center star to enter the wondrous virtual 3D city.
Well, that was certainly on the nose. No wonder this company went under. Honestly, I'm just shocked people actually spent money on this and it didn't come free in a box of Pop-Tarts or with some Sailor V cereal. I think I need a bit of a palate cleanser after that game. So let's set our sights towards some Japanese titles of questionable quality. Surely they have to be better than that last game. Okay, let's load up Bishoujo Senshi Sailormoon Super's Yokoso Sailor Yochien. That sounds leagues better than the 3D Adventures of Sailor Moon. I wonder what it translates to. Sailormoon Super's Welcome Sailor Kindergarten. What have I gotten myself into? Thankfully, I'm actually unable to play the game since it was released for a rather obscure little device called the Playdia, which currently has no forms of emulation. There's approximately one video of it on YouTube since Toei likes to pretend it's clips from the anime, so a quick rundown's in order. Chibiusa introduces us to the concept of Sailor Kindergarten, an educational system which I can only imagine was set up after Hotaru was turned into a baby. Ironically enough, the Senshi that are teachers in the parallel Sailor Moon story are not present. Instead, the inner Senshi are running the school. I fear for future generations of Senshi being taught anything by Usagi. It's no wonder Sailor Eris turned out the way she did. Speaking of which, let's get into the curriculum. Sailor Jupiter teaches the most practical lessons possible, ranging from matching things together to proper street crossing etiquette. She's definitely the most down-to-earth teacher of the bunch, bringing her years of street smarts into the classroom. Sailor Venus, on the other hand, had no lesson plan laid out before she got the job and has been winging it on arrival. She spends all of her time teaching about shapes and colors, which is important to developing minds, but that's her only focus. And she's lazily doing it too, like, what shape is this silhouette? Square, easy as can be. Yeah, you thought it was actually a chair. What the hell shape is this supposed to be? It's a baseball hat, you absolute idiot. Here's a circle, a heart, and the astrological sign of Mars. It's all basic stuff. Speaking of Mars, she might just be the best educational provider out of the entire Sailor Kindergarten. She is in charge of story time as well as sing-along, and these feel almost in line with what actual kindergartners would be up to. The stories are all cutely animated, and the songs have this catchy little tune to them. Definitely the best teacher of the bunch, which is somewhat surprising considering we still have Mercury to talk about. There should be no surprises here, but Mercury is actually trying to teach something with real educational value. If you had to guess what school subject Mercury was responsible for, what would you guess? If you guessed tossing eggs into a basket and then counting them, I'd assume you already played this. Well, as it turns out, Mercury is responsible for teaching counting and reading clocks, oddly enough. Like, if you're struggling with counting, you'd think the linear progression of time would be a bit too much. She gets straight into the whole clock reading thing too, doesn't even try to explain what any of the numbers are, you better just know them. The last instructor we have at Sailor Kindergarten is Sailormoon herself. She teaches perhaps the strangest class of them all, which is the entire reason I even picked this game. It's probably the only course she's qualified to teach, which is brushing teeth. And yes, you heard me right. This game actually had a mouth cam for the toothbrushing minigame, which is a sentence I never thought I'd have to say. Upon dropping out of Sailor Kindergarten, our prospects are looking rather bleak. That was until we remembered the wise words of our teacher, Macho Man Sailor Savage.
You ever get the thrill of slinging one of your little school chums against the mat and watching their eyes roll back in their head like they're some kind of little freak?
That's right, we're going into blood sports. While Sailor Moon actually boasts an impressive amount of very competent fighters, we aren't looking at any of those. Instead, I have my sights set on Bishoujo Senshi Sailor Moon Super's Shin Shuyaku Sōdatsusen, which roughly translates to Sailor Moon Super's Battle for the True King. And while that's one hell of a title, the game manages to fall short of that in every regard. Upon starting up the game, we're introduced to a 3D opening cutscene that admittedly looks pretty cool, all things considered. A decent cover of Moonlight Densetsu is playing while we see some nice renders of the characters using the game engine. Alright, that's all you're getting. The Senshi even fight some giant monster, which would have been a novel yet rather uninspired final boss that all 90s fighters had. But, alas, this game features no such additions to the Sailor Moon mythos. After the cinematic, we are greeted with the title screen and given a few options that are pretty typical for fighting games. Let's jump into story mode, shall we? And we are immediately introduced to a title crawl vomiting what passes for a story all over us without bothering to even set up the mood. From the exposition dump, the plot is exactly the same as all other Sailor Moon fighters. The Senshi think Usagi is lazy and decide to have a good old-fashioned brawl to decide who gets to be the new leader. That's literally the plot to every single one of these games. After getting past the giant wall of text, we are introduced to the character select screen, which is laughably small for a fighting game in 1996. I'm aware that you can play as the outer Senshi in the versus mode, but they're just cut from this mode. I guess it would contradict the story and we can't have that. Well, you know the drill. Pick Sailor Venus and start the game. Even though I'm like 85% sure Chibiusa's meta. I'm on the easiest difficulty, by the way. Just look at her go. So, for full transparency, I am completely dog water at this game, so don't expect some scathing IGN review just because I'm too stupid to be able to consistently spam Venus Love Me Chain as much as the AI could spam Burning Mandela. That being said, this game is really clunky for starters. There's this customization setting which is rather neat, where you just dump points into various different stats. Most of them are pretty standard stuff, you know? Stronger kicks, stronger punches, more health, defense. Oh? What have we here? A cuteness stat. Might as well just max that one all the way for Venus here. Yeah, that just makes your character randomly taunt instead of fighting, which... it's the best way to get smacked with a Burning Mandela. The game just feels so slow, which is the last thing you want in a fighting game. And while the game is responsive, it just feels janky to play. While this game isn't irredeemably bad like some earlier entries on this list, it's just not fun. Thankfully, the team at Angel agreed with me and created some enhancements for the Sega Saturn version that fixes a lot of the major issues I had and added some nice anime cutscenes instead of what's available on the PlayStation original. And yeah, I guess that's really all there is to it. Not much to the game, really. It's pretty boring, and that's all I have to say. So Sailor Moon has a strange history when it comes to localizing video games. Strange in the sense that it never happens despite being one of the highest grossing anime franchises out there. It's even stranger when the most recent video game title wasn't even localized for the Japanese audience. That's right, this game never came out in Japan, but instead was only ever released in Italy. This is Sailor Moon La Luna Splende, or The Moon Shines, which came out in Italy in 2011 for the Nintendo DS. So I speak Italian about as well as I pronounce Japanese, so there's this English patch floating around out there for most of you who are interested in playing this game. Although considering the title of this video, I would advise against it. Upon loading up the game, we're given the option to start the story, so let's see what riveting tale the devs cooked up for us. Right away, we see that Naru is in the hospital. Nina is in the hospital. She has seemingly fallen into a coma, but like a magical one. Don't want this to seem too depressing, gotta keep that 7+ rating. Luna then informs the Senshi that a demon may be the cause. Hold up. This game just got a hell lot more interesting. What do these demons look like? Of course they're giant fucking ladybugs. Why wouldn't they be? The game has a certain level of charm to it. The sprite work here is really nice. The studio did a really good job capturing each Senshi and bringing them to life. And that's about where the praise for this thing ends. This game is an absolute slog to play through, and that's just putting it nicely. Movement is incredibly slow. Every attack has a wind-up. It's next to impossible to hit airborne enemies. There's still no good explanation as to why Sailor Mars can't take a hit from this. It looks like it would give me its credit card information before even thinking about hurting me. So there's 3 worlds you need to go through. Everyone has 10 crystals. You need to wake up Nina. The stages are as follows: the World of Flowers, the World of Gems, and the World of Enchanted Palace. Once the gems are collected in each stage, you gotta have a little boss fight with Kunzite. Lord Caspar. I use the term boss fight rather loosely because much like anything in this game, there's nothing of any interest going on. Jump out of the way of his balls and slap him in the back. Have every single one of the Senshi do this and he's down for the count. And don't worry if he hits you, Tuxedo Mask will materialize inside Naru's dreams to assist you. After playing this game, I certainly have more questions than I have answers. So the game is called Luna Splende, which is allegedly what the second season of Sailormoon is called in Italy. Yet it's all Dark Kingdom all day, every day. Why the hell is Kunzite the big bad? So get this, in the Italian dub, Kunzite is the only one to get a badass name change to the likes of Lord Caspar. Let me introduce you to the rest of the Shitenteno. So here we have Zakar, that right there is my boy Nevius, and who could forget Jack? Why didn't they just use one of them per level omitting Jack? Is Lord Caspar the most popular villain in Italy? Sailormoon is still incredibly popular in Italy. Whenever Naoko Takeuchi does an interview, the Italian translation drops before the English one even does. But why develop a game only for this market? Does Japan really think this poorly of the franchise that they refuse to translate anything? It's an incredibly undertapped market with tons of potential for interesting and unique game IPs to flourish instead of the table scraps we get in Sailormoon drops. Sure, they aren't all home runs, but if other less successful anime are able to consistently pump out video games despite having ended years ago, I don't see why Sailormoon can't. Maybe these games are just a reminder why PNP doesn't bother leveraging their incredibly successful IP in the video game space. My personal headcanon is Naoko doesn't want her husband playing any games based on her work so he can finish writing Hunter x Hunter.